When did you realize that it was not laziness but depression? When I started thinking that if I was dead, I could sleep forever. Alternatively, it would be nice to just sleep for a few years, hoping that everything would just feel better when you wake up. Sort of like a cryogenic chamber. Hopefully I feel better in the year 3000 then. When I actually really wanted to do something, but just couldn't bring myself to do it. This is one of the worst feelings, IMO. It's like trying to stand up but suddenly you have weights on your arms and legs, and no matter how much you try, you just can't. I call it walking through the molasses. When I couldn't be bothered to eat despite being hungry. See, I have this problem, but the exact opposite. I'll eat when I'm not hungry at all, just for an instant dopamine hit of the satisfaction of some tasty food. I gain weight when depressed. I eat for the mood boost, but can't get myself motivated to get out the door and get some exercise and fresh air. When nothing is really fun or exciting anymore, I feel like my days are just me waiting to die. I don't want to die, will not kill myself or anything, but nothing makes me cheerful. Nothing is really fun. When I wake up in the morning, it's like I have a bunch of hours to fill with some activity until the day ends, and I'm one day closer to have it finished. When I started neglecting things that were obviously not to be neglected, personal hygiene, work, etc. How do you manage your finances when work is affected? Frankly speaking, I didn't. Neglecting work made me fall deeper into depression, which in turn led me to missing even more work. Eventually, I got fired. Decided I needed to restart. At the end of my lease and most of my savings, I moved back to my family home and sold off everything I had and paid off all my debts. Family were supportive enough to let me stay and get my life together. Got a new job and slowly rebuilt it all. Doing better now, although I have a long way to go. Having someone you can lean on in times of need is truly a blessing. When I realized I genuinely didn't care if I never woke up again. This exact feeling, the feeling when you don't care if the world blows up around you. Still have this going on. I called in sick for work 5 days in a row and spent 9 days, 2 weeks and 5 work days in bed in the same clothes, wrapped in my thick black robe with the covers literally over my head. I couldn't stand the light. I would only get up for a few minutes to go to the bathroom or snatch a bite of junk food, and only at night. My therapist had spent the past year trying to convince me to try antidepressants, and it finally clicked with me that this wasn't just fatigue. 15 years later, and I've never looked back. I was at my neighbor's apartment, and we were all joking about how tough midterms had been. I told my friends that most days I would wake up, lie in my bed, and know that I would literally rather die than attend class. Everyone looked at me with complete shock on their faces. Turns out, most people don't dread doing simple, necessary things, enough to want to die over it. I ended up starting my medical leave from college the day after. My grandmother died of cancer just before the exam session started. I ended up failing 4 out of 7 exams simply because I couldn't sleep, therefore wasn't able to focus on the exam at all. Even though I studied and did everything it took to pass with a decent grade. I'm on treatment now and I'm going to start studying again in August and retake all my exams in September. Sometimes it really takes to hit the rock bottom to realize you need help and can't just brush it off. The inability to even go out and do simple, necessary errands. The amount of money I spend on delivery food is insane. Yep, I generally am doing good nowadays, but stuff like that is a definite sign I am slipping. It's always a battle. I always have had migraines for 30 years. It's a real double whammy. I lost interest in hobbies, slept 24/7, turned out I had hypothyroidism, but anxiety and depression can be supposedly come from it. Yup, cognitive abilities are affected and it's a real problem. I decided to get a blood test because I match most of the symptoms of hypothyroidism. I didn't have a choice whether to do something. I didn't care about them. I didn't care about anything, and there wasn't a reason for it. It was miserable. You keep saying was. Is that to say you got better? Antidepressants plus therapy, tons of it. When you're too lazy to do things that you always used to love. When you think nobody would care if you died. Just a weight lifted off everyone's shoulders. Cover them in sand. Nobody likes wearing something that's coarse and rough, and that gets everywhere. Fellow women, let's pay attention to these responses. Thankfully, the opposite is the only thing stopping me at the moment. I don't care about my well-being, but the idea of my family suffering turns me off from the idea. I hope I don't change my mind. A therapist once said to me, "A lazy person believes they have the power to change things. They are satisfied to just have the power, but not use it. A depressed person has no hope that anything will change, no matter what they do." That was one of many moments that made me stop and go, uh-oh. Why do I relate to both of those? Naturally lazy, but also depressed. When I didn't want to go to the store, I stopped changing clothes and eating. I couldn't stay awake. I didn't want to even write poetry. When I didn't get out of bed for 80 hours straight. Yup, I peed in bed and didn't poop. It was really brave of you to share that. My room got progressively messier and messier and messier. I just did not have any energy to clean it ever. This is just what made me realize maybe it was more than laziness. Years ago, I had a job that I hated. On top of that, I was learning how to live in the world as an adult after having been neglected and not taught much in the way of life skills. It was rough. There were days that I just couldn't really wake up. I'd just stay in bed, intermittently dozing, getting up only to go to the bathroom. I often didn't even eat. Even calling in to work on those days took what seemed like a Herculean effort. It wasn't until recently that it was a symptom of depression. I was never taught any life skills at all. I literally didn't know how to go about living without money. I couldn't get out of bed and totaled my car, so I couldn't even attempt a job. I don't think I could have anyways. The worst was finally being free of my abuser, with absolutely nobody to lean on. My mother had a complete nervous breakdown and depression of her own, and nobody else understood why I couldn't do anything. People really need to realize that depression is a disease, as real as cancer. I was suicidal, and nobody said a word. When I realized that most people don't cry in the shower every day, or that most people don't cry every time they go to sleep, I no longer do that. Meds dull the sad feelings. I had that too. Why does it happen in the shower? It's the only place you know you can let it all out without getting caught. Didn't get out of bed except for work for a few years. Gained like 7 stone from laying in bed, overeating, and crying. Nearly lost my job because I kept having to call in sick because I'd stayed up all night cutting myself. The usual stuff. Didn't see I had a problem until a few years later, and it makes me horribly sad that I wasted my late teens and early 20s in such a bad place. And now I'm having to play catch-up like crazy. I hope you're better now. I used to care a lot about my grades at school. Then at some point I started to skip school more and more often to stay in bed, even though it didn't make me feel any better. I think going to school would have been the better alternative, but I just could not find the motivation to get up. Later that day, I would regret it. Honestly, I do not deserve my good end GPA. My teachers let me pass senior with the best grades of my whole year, still even if I was absent for like 50% of the time. I do not deserve. Please know that. It is not wrong to receive things undeservedly. It is wrong to demand things undeserved. It is idiotic to expect things undeserved. It is naive to expect things deserved. But it is not wrong to receive things undeserved. If you have been given something you believe you didn't earn, though that too is also up for debate in life, do not feel remorseful. For people, the world overborn into a better life than yours, do not regret their good breeding. Be grateful for the lucky break, and always do your best in becoming the person who deserves it. Anxiety, depressive here. Thoughts of doing XYZ would make my mind spiral and figure out how to twist any activity into self-loathing, self-hate opportunity. I have to go outside equals people are outside. They'll see me and be disgusted. I'm doing the world a favor by staying hidden, etc. When I stopped being the really excited one and started not wanting to talk to people. That I didn't want to get out of my bed because there was nothing that would make me happy. I'm fine now, but it sucked. When I couldn't, like physically could not bother to roll over in bed and check the time on my phone because I realized I just didn't care what time I slept into. Ended up lying in bed all weekend, fading in and out of sleep and getting up to use the toilet. I couldn't force myself awake. Loss of interest in daily activities. Like 5-year-old but wasn't able to see someone until a legal adult because my family did not believe in mental illness. One guess on what I now do for a living. You're a therapist? Yup. When I would literally sleep all day, at first I thought I was a lazy bum, But when it started happening all of the time, I realized I had a problem. I would do this for a week and then I'd stay up for 2 to 3 days straight and get almost everything that was supposed to be done. The whole time scolding myself for procrastinating and swearing to never do it again. Then the cycle happens again. I've been off my medication for manic depression for almost a year. I was doing so well for at first, and now I'm so scared to go back, but I can't keep doing this forever. The first suicide attempt made me suspect. The next 4 really made me wonder. And by number 6, I was pretty sure it was depression. I branded my favorite hoodie as the worst hoodie in the world. Anytime my wife asks for it, I just tell her that she wouldn't want it. It's the worst in the world. It's not even sadness, it's a complete lack of emotion. Like nothing's gonna cheer a clinically depressed person up because we can't feel. I wish a common knowledge of mental illness was more widely known. I had long just skipped school and thought I was just tired of it, but then I slowly realized that I had no energy to do anything and started to blame and isolate myself. I tried to meditate for an hour, but ended up in front of the mirror holding a kitchen knife, thinking of where between the ribs it would be easy. I'm totally okay now, but that was a rough time. When someone commented that they hadn't heard me sing for months, normally I'm constantly singing, humming or whistling, or even just drum with my fingers on the table, and I was not doing any of that anymore. But that was only one of the signs. When I didn't just want to not do work, homework, go to class, etc., but I also didn't want to do the things I normally enjoyed. I'd just lie in bed instead of playing a video game, watching TV, doing something with friends. A Reddit post mentioned that not having a will to live is not normal. When not wanting to do anything turned into hoping I would get a cancer or other major illness that would give me an excuse to not do anything without it being my fault. When my shrink told me this, it honestly never occurred to me that I was chronically depressed all the time, but mildly so rather than just wanting to hang out at home on the couch all day and not leave the house for a week or so if I was off from work. When I didn't get out of bed for an entire 24 hours, I didn't eat, check my phone, turn on the TV, I would just sleep on and off, and when I was awake, I just stared at the wall or ceiling. When I was sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day and still tired and hated doing anything, including stuff I was passionate about. When you realize it's not depression but alcoholism, LOL. When I no longer got excited for things I normally did. This evolved into realizing I truly hadn't felt happy in months and had just felt neutral. When you fall so far behind the goal, you realize a shorter path is committing suicide. I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to sleep and be left alone. I didn't enjoy anything. Everything was boring and life was a chore to me. Thanks for asking this question. Over the last year or so, I've had people suggest I might be suffering from depression, but I've never checked it out, thanks to bad experiences with doctors in the past. The problem is, I'm not convinced I actually have it. I exhibit a number of symptoms, but I'm still functional, and a lot of the more typical symptoms don't fit me at all. Furthermore, I've been this lazy for as long as I can remember, so I'm not even convinced that it's not just a terrible personality on my part. When I had a panic attack over an easy test and ended up bawling in class randomly. When even the things I liked became boring and dull, like games or TV, things that was supposed to resemble me just being lazy. When I wasn't excited to travel solo. When you lose all passion for anything, you have no drive to do anything you previously enjoyed or even get out of bed. When my legs stopped moving. When my friend told me that I'd been depressed for the 4 years we've known each other, I had no clue whatsoever. Staying in bed for hours on end and only getting up to go to work or to use the toilet, and sadly not even getting up to eat most days, even when your stomach is growling, you still have no appetite or taste for anything, so not feeding yourself would be a sign. When my psychiatrist, who I went to see for ADD/ADHD symptoms, insisted on also putting me on bupropion, I said, "Why, doc? I'm not depressed." He said, "Yes, you are, severely. Turns out depression isn't just being really sad. Sadness and depression just happens to occur together frequently." When I went to a party, drank 2 bottles of wine, I weighed 45 to 55 kilos, and used some dull scissors to cut my wrists, thinking I wouldn't mind if this actually worked.